Hi everyone, welcome to Musically Crafted. I'm Lydia, and today we are going to be making this super cute spider web Halloween card that is inspired by some die cut machine icon cards, but is all done on the Cricut. So if you want to see how I make this on my Cricut, keep on watching and I'll walk you through the whole process. We start this design here in Cricut Design Space, where we will customize our entire card. To set up the A2 card, I go into the shapes feature over here and I just pull a square and a score line. This helps me just visualize what my card is going to look like as I design for sizing on the other elements. You can skip forward if you use a paper trimmer or something else to get your card base, but follow along if you need to do this as well. For an A2 card, it is 4 1/4, and I'll unlock the proportions so that my height can be different by 11, which creates the long card shape. I set it to white because I'm going to make my card white. And then the line that we grabbed, if you go back to shapes, it's this very first line. That's a score line. And that's like if you have a scoring wheel or a stylus, the Cricut will score it for you. If I do this without the Cricut and I just have a paper trimmer do it, I just fold the card in half to make it easy. But for the visualization part, I grab the score line, I come up here to the More Tools editing button, rotate it by 90 degrees, and the height I make 4 1/4 as well. Whoops, 4 1/4. Then I like to select both of them so that you can see in the panel they're both covered. I do that just by holding my shift button and clicking on what I want, or you can come and select them in the panel. But then I align them to center horizontally and vertically so that it's perfectly in the center. Then I attach these two together so that they don't move on me. And just so I know what I'm clicking on in the corner, I rename it to be my card base, because this will be the part that is folded and the main part of the card. Then I come back over to shapes and I actually add another square, because to give the card a little bit of pop, I like to add a panel that is just slightly smaller. It's about 1/4 inch smaller on each side. So I unlock my proportions and I'm going to do a 4 inch by 5 inch panel so that you can see, and I just get this close because again, this is just for our design. 4 by 5 1/4. My goodness. So that I can kind of see where things are going to hang off. But the black panel is what we will use foam tape just to give it a little bit of elevation, and it helps that I can see this here. I still make it white because I can see that outline there, but if you need the different color to just make it pop a little more to your eyes, then go ahead and do that. But I'll rename this part the panel so that I have that well adjusted, and then I will leave that there. So this gives me what the card will look like if it was opened up flat and you had the top here. This is the back of the card, and it would open here at the fold. And now I have my base to very easily do some of my designing. Now that we have our panel done and that gives us a good basis on the sizing of things, we can go straight into finding some images that we want to use for our card. So I like to use the images button over here, and I do have Cricut Access, which is a subscription that gives me all these different designs that I just pay a monthly fee to have access for. And so if you do not have Cricut Access, this is where you either need to buy some SVGs, whether it's off Etsy or Creative Fabrica, for whatever you're looking for. For me today, I am really leaning towards a spider web, just as our full design thing. And I think I want it to be a basic cut. So anything that looks like this, that's kind of like a spider web silhouette, will be great because then the Cricut can cut that out. And I think I want to do the spiders separately. So I'm not going to worry about anything with the spiders. And I was looking through earlier and I liked this spider web because I thought it was a nice size that we could cut some of it out and use parts of it that we liked, or we could just use the whole thing. So I'm going to add this to our design and just kind of size it down a little bit and get an idea of what we're thinking. I think I want most of it to be on the card and then some of it to hang off. So let me see. If this is the panel, I can line it up there. And then this little section here would be what gets cut off. And I could do like a little sentiment right at the end down here. Oops. Even scoot it down just a little bit more. I think I like this size, and so I'm gonna leave it just kind of there for reference. And in my head, I want this to be slightly more three-dimensional than just one layer of paper. So I'm actually going to Control C, copy that and paste it 2 more times so that the Cricut will cut this out at the same size. And I'm gonna layer all those together, and I'll show you how that's done when we put our card. But I'm just gonna set those to the side. They're in the same color, so it'll cut on the same color paper. But I think we're gonna do that, and that will be really super fun. Now that we have our spider web kind of put where we think we're gonna do it, and the Cricut will cut this out in full, right? Just as like a regular Cricut project. It'll have the full thing, and it'll just be on one color of paper. We're gonna add a spider, and this is the part where I get the die cut style. So I found this little spider in images, and I just searched spider. Again, Cricut Access gives me access to this spider that's been created by someone else that I pay a monthly subscription for. If you don't have this, you will have to find this SVG somewhere else or create one yourself using other creative software. But I'm gonna put this little guy in. And because he's like a silhouette style, this makes it really easy to do the die cut process, but with your Cricut machine. Let me show you what I mean. Right now up here, the Cricut is set to basic cut. And if you change that to pen, the Cricut will now draw the outline of this spider, which is why I like that silhouette shape. It gives you room to color it yourself with alcohol markers and just kind of get a different effect than if you just cut it out with cardstock. And we get to kind of move him around and see like what size do we want for our card. I think I'm gonna do, I like about 1 inch to 1.5 inch icons when I do the die cut style. I think I'm gonna try 2 1/4 and just kind of put them in the middle. And yeah, I kind of already like how he looks with that. So I'm gonna keep 1 1/4. And then to make it match the die cut style, I'm going to add an offset around him so that the Cricut will cut around the spider, but not like each individual leg. So the spider itself is set to pen. If I come up here to the more tools icon, in effects, there is an offset. When I create the offset, oops, let me move the spider so we can see what we're doing over here. Shift him up so that window doesn't block him. Click offset. And it automatically sets for 1/4 inch, and you can see the whole bubble that it would cut around it. I like to make mine much smaller, and I don't think I want each individual leg. Or do I? Let's see. If I go 0.25, I think I want, yeah, something like that. Can I go down to 0.6? No, then it starts cutting it. So let's do 0.65 and hit apply. And so now in my right corner of my layers, you can see that the offset is here. But underneath where it says offset, it's set to draw, which means that the Cricut is still going to draw the lines instead of cut. So we need to come back up to the operations panel and hit basic cut again and change the color to white. And so now you can see what that will look like. The Cricut is going to draw where you see the black lines with the pen, but then cut a little offset around it so that we have the full icon of this little spider. I do think I want the offset to be slightly tighter. So I'm gonna just push that in a little bit on each side. There we go. Just so it's a little bit closer. And then I'm just going to quickly center this. There we go. So that the spider is all lined up. Now I'm going to attach these because we want the Cricut to draw and cut it out together, or else if they're separate, it'll just draw the spider somewhere and cut the offset somewhere instead of doing it as like one little piece. And so now I have my little spider, and I'm gonna create, control and copy. We're gonna make 3 of them. And I'm not sure if we're gonna use all of them, but I like to have the options just in case. Oh, aren't they cute? Okay, so we'll have the 3 spiders that will sit on our spider web. And now I need the sentiment for the card. And let's see, I'm kind of leaning towards just a very simple boo, because this card will have a lot of like little accents to it. And it's for like a theme at my work where you give a little gift to someone and say you've been booed. So I think I want it to say boo just to kind of match with that. So we're going to come over here and add text. And I'm going to type the word boo, and I think I'll even do this with like a little exclamation point. Now that we have our text, for the sentiment, I want it to be as though, like, again, another die cut style situation. So typically with die cut sentiments, you stamp on the sentiment and then it cuts the offset. So to do that, we need to make sure that our writing is set, like the text is set to pen. And then so that we know that we're writing it with our pen. And when you are picking your fonts, this is something I had to learn the hard way. You want to make sure that when you go into your filter that you can select writing, because then it will make sure that it does not have, see how like my font right here is very block lettered and I would have to fill it in. We don't want that. We want this to be a writing font, just like you wrote it in pen yourself. If you can kind of see how it's now one thin layer. So now I'm just going to scroll through and search for that perfect font. Okay, I think I've officially looked at these far too long that now boo doesn't even look like a word. But I think I've decided on doing this BFC Haunted Scratch font, which again comes from Cricut Access. I just like how simple it is, and the cursive was just not really working as well for me. But the size of it actually does not bother me, that it would cover just slightly the end but be here, and that leaves room for our cute little spiders. So I like the size that it is. And now again, we're going to add an offset. So we hit the more tools, and with the font we have to kind of scroll down a little bit and hit effect for that offset. Oh, I always do this, I can never see it. There we go. We'll zoom in a little bit so we can see. Okay, offset. And I want my offset to not have any of these holes in between the letters. So I'm going to drag there until it's about, so that you don't see any cuts in between the letters. Let me see, can I go down just to 1? No, 1.15. There we go. All right, hit apply. Again, the offset is still a draw because our text was draw, so we have to change the offset to be, oh rats, why does it do that? Okay, I cut a good bit out of this video because I ran into a problem and I needed to have an answer before I told you how to fix it. So this was the text that I last left you at that I wanted to do. It was boo. It was written in the Haunted Scratch font. We set it to writing. Life is good. Okay. So it was giving me a problem that anytime I wanted to create the offset, and I could show you now, and we'll make it bigger, apply. The offset says draw, and when you go and try and turn it to a cut, it's not an option. I tried flattening it, I tried attaching it, I tried all these things, and it still was not working. So after a lot of troubleshooting, this is kind of the best thing I had. I copy and pasted this. I went in and started editing my font to be regular style so that the Cricut would remember that there is a path. I went ahead and welded it okay, so that it had this one path. It was all going to be fine. And I created an offset around that, made it slightly larger, just went ahead and applied it so that now I have the basic cut as an option. Went ahead and did that, but then I delete the actual cut file, which is what I did here. That leaves us with the basic cut and still our pen writing that we can now, if I just send this backward one, which so that it's here and it fits behind this. Now I have our font with the offset that I just have to slightly adjust to make it fit the size of our design. Let's go ahead and align that. And shrink this down. I don't know if that is the Cricut help desk answer for how to solve this. If any of you know how to fix that problem much better than I did, I would love to know, because this happens not with every font, but with some, and I just never know why it works with others but not all of them. So yeah, I don't know. That's just a weird issue with it. But now that we have that, so that there's writing with the draw feature and an offset with the cut, we're going to attach all that together. I just rename it sentiment so I know what I'm clicking on. And now we can size it appropriately for what we want. So I think the boo is going to fit right there. Super, super, super cute. And I think I like that design. This is kind of what I'm thinking is going to happen with the Cricut, and I like it. Now, I do not actually need the Cricut to cut out the card base or the panel, because I just have those pre-cut with a paper trimmer. I just think it's a little faster for me rather than having to peel it off of the card mat. But if you don't have a paper trimmer, the design is now ready to go. I'm going to save this as the spider web A2 card. And I have all these other things. Tyler Projects is my husband. But now I have the card kind of set up how I think it's going to be, and it's all good. Notice that I am not attaching the spiders to the web, because that makes the Cricut cut things out differently. I'm leaving these loose so that the Cricut kind of just organizes as needed. And I have the spider web in 3 so that I can layer those together, and I'll show you how that works. This is my Cricut Design Space file. I will have this linked below if you want to take the work out of it, but again, you will need the Access subscription to have it look exactly like mine, but feel free to recreate in any way that you have. I'm going to go ahead on now and make it, but I will see you in the assembly process. Okay, now that I have printed everything out in my Cricut, these are the pieces that we have to play with to assemble the full card. We have the spiders, the boo, and I told you that I made those 3 copies of the web, and here's why. I'm gonna layer all 3 of these together with some repositional tape, and I did 2 of them on just plain white cardstock, but one I did on this like glittery cardstock that I got actually from the dollar store, so that it just had a little bit of glimmer, since I'm putting this on a white card base and panel, just so it pops, but it's still really minimalistic, because here's the panel, and it'll just give it a little bit of dimension and contrast. So let's go ahead, and first, before I start constructing things, I would like to decorate these spiders first. Didn't they turn out so cute? I am going to be coloring these in with some alcohol markers, and I am using the, I'm not even sure if I'm gonna say it right, the Ohuhu Hawaii brand of alcohol markers. And I have purple for the spiders, pink for some cheeks, and I want like the inside of their eyes to be black. So we're gonna try that and enjoy a little bit of coloring. still working on my alcohol marker technique, so we had a little bit of runoff here, and the only thing that doing this with the Cricut instead of stamps is that I don't know if Cricut has certain types of fine tip pens yet that won't necessarily bleed with the alcohol markers. I've just been using these regular Cricut markers, but they work really, really nicely, and I'm not mad about how those turned out. I think that those little spiders are still very, very, very cute. The next thing I want to do is put these three webs all together. So I'm actually going to get a piece of some scrap paper. Let me see. To catch the repositional tape, you can use craft glue or any type of adhesive you're used to using. This is just what has always worked for me. I'm going to set these guys just in my little dish. I'm going to take my base layer, and then I'm using Creative Memories Repositional tape. I have a lot of family members who have been involved with the company, and repositional tape you can just apply kind of sporadically because it is not permanent yet. I try and get contact at all the tips so that they don't lift off, and then parts of the middle just so it's a little secure. And as you can see, it left the parts behind, and you can rub away whatever you don't want to show. But then we'll add the second layer on top. Just line it up. And what's great about the repositional tape is that if I lined it up really, really terribly and I want to try again, it's not permanent yet, so I can lift it off and realign if I need to. I'm okay with this though. All right, so that's one part. And I'm gonna go ahead and just jump forward through the next bit and add the next two layers. So that is the spider web done with the repositional tape. And this is just kind of nice because instead of having to prop it up with foam tape and get something really small to fit in there, it gives it a thickness. I don't know if you can really see it, but it levels it up a little bit so that it's not going to sit completely flat, and just gives it a tad bit more dimension just by layering those three pieces together. Okay, so now we have all our different components. I even have the card panel cut out to that 4 1/4 by 11, the card base I mean, and then this is the panel that we can secure on when we're ready, and that's just by, I think that's the 4 by 5 1/4. And now we kind of get to play and decide where we want everything to sit for sure. And I really want to get a good bit of this web on as possible, knowing that I probably will be trimming the tops, the bottoms, and the side to be in contact to the panel. Let's go ahead and eliminate that now. I like that. And then I'm thinking the boo will sit about here. And then we have our little spiders that we can pop up with some foam tape. Oh, I actually think I like that there's 3 of them. Oh, how fun. Yeah, okay. I think we're gonna set it up like this. I'm just trying to decide if I like this boo. I think I like it. Worst case, I can make a different card and try a different sentiment, but I like that it's there and prominent. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and attach my spider web. I'm going to bring back this little spare piece of paper, use my repositional tape again, and this is the part that'll be on the inside. And we will just trim off whatever we don't need. it lined up on the edge there. And this is where I always feel like I have to stand up to make sure that I like the way that it looks. Yeah. Okay, so now I'm just gonna bring some scissors in. And trim off those little edges. There we go. All right, so now that the spider web is on, I love how that just gives it a little bit of pop against like the bare white. And now I can get some foam squares to make the next part super, super easy and customizable. So let's see, give me my little spiders. Okay. Maybe we can do the smaller ones for them. I think I have a pack with just a few more small to use up. There we go. This will just help make the spiders be a little more dimensional. I'm gonna bring my weeder tool over to pull off some of these little covers on the adhesive part. Just to help make that go a little faster. And now I can start putting all these little elements on and finding any of those little spots that might just need a little extra adhesive. There we go. And then you wipe away whatever you're not going to use. There we go. Okay. Get a small little piece of tweezers so that we can kind of place these wherever we want. Whoops. That's what was missing. Okay. Oh, I love it. And peel off the liners for our sentiment. And putting the sentiment on another color could also be something fun to play with if we wanted to introduce extra color into it. Make sure it's all straight. There we go. And then we just add it to our card base. I need to get one of those larger rolls of adhesive tape, but right now we're gonna make it work with these little foam squares. And I actually have just been cheating a little bit to get longer strips, just cutting the border for extra squares and or just long strips. That'll be probably my next Michaels run, is trying to see if I can add some of that to my craft empire. I've been saving up for it. Oop. Do this edge. This edge. And in the middle. All right, pull off the liners again. Throw those away. And now we can line this up. All right. And there we have it. A super, super, super cute spider card. For the Halloween season. I'm so excited with that. Thank you so much for joining me for a quick card craft this evening, and I hope that you have a great rest of your week.